All right. So we are on our third Marvel series already. Like we said at the start of all these, I remember this seeming like I wasn't sure if it was an idea I was going to be into or not. And then we talked about how, WandaVision actually opened up a lot of different doors that should be interesting. And Falcon and Winter Soldier was kind of its nice, almost kind of standalone thing in its own way. And Loki, in its first episode, basically showed us all the possible doors this could lead to.
Pretty much the way it went was WandaVision opened the door, Falcon and Winter Soldier kind of cracked the door open, and Loki just busted the door down with a wrecking ball.
Well, I think the thing about this is usually, and kind of still a part of me, is a bit uncertain because, as you know, I like a series where when people die, they stay dead.
Mm-hmm.
And Loki's MO
Mm-hmm.
is to die and come back. That's like his whole deal. Even after he was killed officially and told no resurrections this time, we still got this. And yes, technically, it was like when we got that scene in Endgame that set up the beginning of this show, it was like, all right, I kind of see what you're doing, I guess. So basically my mind is in as long as this timeline is intact, we're good. So, guess what?
And you're full of it because this isn't the first time that you've been okay with a resurrection. What we were talking about before we hit record, you're okay with Larry David coming back from the dead.
That's a video that will be happening in the slightly near future, the medium future.
Mm-hmm.
But in the meantime, before we get to Larry David, I do find it very interesting. I guess one of the first things to bring up is since it was like, we're going to get a whole other series of events when Loki goes wherever he goes, when he uses Tesseract to disappear out of Endgame. And the very first thing that happens is he gets caught.
Mm-hmm.
Like immediately. Like he doesn't even get to go anywhere.
I don't even think the opening credits have happened yet.
No, we don't get the opening title until the guy gets pruned in the line that didn't have a ticket.
That's right.
Which is pretty far into the episode.
Yeah.
And then just that whole idea that hadn't really occurred to me prior to the show, which was that means that everything that happens to him in this show, the events of the first Avengers movie just happened.
Mm-hmm.
Like literally. And that gets brought up a few times, like in the when he first gets to the Void and he's trying to explain what all has happened, and he just kind of stops and says, I don't even know how long ago New York was anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It's like we as the audience really don't either, but it's not really, interestingly enough, given the plot, are there any time jumps, or are we pretty much watching it as it happens, this show?
So pretty much. The only time jump is when they jump to an actual point in time, but we're following it in real time with how he's seeing it.
As far as like how long ago New York was in Loki's mind,
mm-hmm.
was just the time we see happen in the show. And I love that because obviously they've done a really good job of setting this up throughout the series.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously the thing that was kind of throwing me off was how much I really love a really evil villain. And one of my least favorite things is when a really good evil villain turns good.
Mm-hmm.
But the way they kind of, because Loki is pure villain in the first Avengers movie. And they even have multiple people bring that up to him. Everyone from Owen Wilson.
Whoa.
I don't make mistakes like that. You didn't hear that. Okay, Mobius brings up, and even like Kang at the end brings up, like, dude, you're a villain. You're like a hardcore villain, and we need to not forget that. But it's like when he would be those occasions where he'd be brotherly with Thor, and he was basically, he might as well have been one of the heroes in Ragnarok.
Mm-hmm.
But the whole idea is eventually he still turns bad again. Like, to the point that it never, like, that becomes a theme, especially when we're introducing all the other variants of Loki in the last 2 episodes. So it's a very conflicting character for somebody to like me that loves when villains stick to their villainy, because it's like he does have a good side in there somewhere. Kind of like when we're getting Richard E. Grant's telling the backstory about how eventually, even though he lived to be old, he ended up missing Thor.
Mm-hmm. And then you have the flip side where Kid Thor's Nexus event was that he took Thor, or Kid Loki's Nexus event was that he took Thor out.
Yeah. And they're so for everything that you kind of question, like, I don't know if I like this direction, there's always something there that kind of fills it in. You could easily call those cop outs, but I think the way that they establish the kind of character that Loki is, and the fact that his whole purpose, like, there's characters that flip flop in an annoying way just for the sake of story, like for the sake of a lazy writer. But the fact that that's the purpose of Loki's character kind of makes it a different thing and a more tolerable thing, because that's his whole appeal. Is it no matter, and like I said, how that's a continuous theme through this one is, no matter how good he seems at any particular point, he's probably going to turn at some point, and that happens all the way up to the very end. I love the bit when like President Loki shows up with all those other ones. And it's like they all kind of like what is it, boastful Loki, I think they call him. Turn, like, he's the one that sold them out, and then like all the other Lokis turn on President Loki, and it's the whole everybody says about that before they're about to turn. And it's like boastful Loki says, yeah, about that, and then we realize he turned, and then all the different Lokis say, yeah, about that, and they all just turn on each other. I love the about that signal. Because I'm assuming, I can't pinpoint one exactly, but I'm assuming Loki has said that multiple times throughout the series before he turns on somebody. And what we were talking about, how I really loved, like, one thing this show kind of had going against it for me was how much I loved the first episode. And how much it really surprised me in the ideas I had up its sleeve, which meant that the next 5 episodes had to live up to it. But the way they pointed out so much, I felt like they needed to point out, like the fact that Loki is destined to die, and the fact that because we're dealing with 2012 Loki, there's so much he doesn't know yet, and the way they run him down and show him Rene Russo's death and then his own death. We finally got that scene we always joked about with Thanos, where when we did our Avengers video, we joked about how, imagine if Thanos had a more terrified reaction to witnessing his own death when he saw it. Of course we were joking, because obviously it's really badass that Thanos' reaction was, oh good, everything went to plan, while watching his own head fly off. And it's like Loki was more the reaction we were talking about, but they were able to make it like, actually, even though we joked about it so often, you would think it wouldn't seem serious to us when it actually finally happened. But it does play itself really seriously. And it's like a big kind of turning point for the character.
Especially when you think about that, like, he sees that Thanos did it, and in the timeline that he's from, just a couple hours before that, he was working for Thanos.
Yeah. It's like there's so many things that hit much harder when you realize you have to put yourself in the perspective of the fact that Loki's from 2012 right now.
Mm-hmm.
And there's the whole thing, like when Mobius is taking him through, and it's like, by the way, yeah, you were all lovable in Ragnarok and stuff like that. And yeah, you died honorably in Infinity War, but you still killed Coulson. Let's not forget. You still DI'd that one guy. Captain America compared you to Hitler. And then that whole thing, I love that moment where Mobius just completely tears him down. He says, just so you know, like, your whole purpose is to cause pain and suffering so that others can be better. That's your only reason for existing. And it's like, you can really see how, like, when we see a torn down Loki for the rest of the series, that's not necessarily as, his arrogance will always be there, obviously, but he's a little more knocked down after these opening scenes.
He's pretty much been told he's a loser.
Yeah.
As Ernie McCracken would say, a real Munson.
Yeah. He is such a Munson, isn't he? Complete with the arrogance. But no, we have comic book villain Woody Harrelson coming later this year. Now that everybody's going on about that. But before we get to that, another thing was, did you like that all that stuff happened instantaneously? Because having the footage to be able to show him of, like, his mother die and then himself die, that's something they probably could have milked if they wanted to be lazy about it. Like, they could have had him find out about this stuff in, like, episode 3 if they wanted to. And then it would have, like, been some kind of conflict for his character in the middle. But the fact that they just hit him with it immediately, I feel like really establishes the character the way they needed to for him to star in a series.
Yeah.
And to keep it in our heads, don't forget, this is the guy that killed Coulson. This is the guy that DI'd the guy in the first Avengers. The whole New York attack that gave Stark PTSD for the remainder of his life. Like, I love how seriously New York is treated in Iron Man 3. Like, it was this thing, and how it's that moment in Infinity War where everybody's trying to figure out who Thanos is, and Bruce has to tell him, remember New York, that was Thanos. And that's when you see Tony kind of register, like, oh, well then, this could be it. And it's like, to see this character that we see in this series was right in the middle of all of that.
Stark even brings up an Endgame, like when he's going on his tirade when he gets back to Earth, like New York was the reason he proposed a suit of armor around the world. New York is the whole reason Ultron even existed. Yeah.
And now we've got him bumbling around the hallways of TV. But once again, that was always his character, because as big and bad as he is in the first Avengers movie, he was just basically Thanos' puppet, wasn't he? So, yeah.
But still, he was an Avengers level threat.
Yeah. And at first, I'm like, it's weird how traumatizing the Battle of New York was for the characters, when it's like nostalgia for us. Like, remember when there was only like 6 of them and it was just Loki? Like, it seems so small. It's crazy. And what you're telling me about who and what Kang is, because I really have no idea. It's pretty. I mean, they did a good job of building him up in that last episode to be like a bigger than Thanos kind of threat. What I'm trying to remember exactly what the comparison was you made. Didn't you say something like, at the end of the day, Kang should make Thanos look like Loki?
Yeah.
That's going to be wild. Especially interesting since I think Kang's next movie, his next appearance is Ant-Man 3, isn't it? Which is...
Yeah.
I mean, that does seem random, but once again, at the same time, Scott was responsible for, essentially, Endgame. So Scott's one of the big players now, ironically enough.
Mm-hmm.
So, what do you think about how this one handles exposition? Because that's pretty important. That's pretty important for the way everything else goes.
I think it has a lot to set up, because this is a brand new concept. Like, with all new people. Like, I think, if I remember right, you can correct me if I'm wrong, other than Loki and some flashbacks, everybody that's introduced is brand new. Like, we've never seen them before.
I think
like
so.
like WandaVision, you had Wanda and Vision and Darcy and Jimmy Woo. So you knew them. Falcon and Winter Soldier, you knew Sam, you knew Bucky, you knew Baron Zemo. With this series, everyone is we've never seen any of these people before. We're going in a completely new direction.
Yeah, because that's the thing, is you'll notice that when these episodes are going like one at a time, you see a lot of fans are like praying for cameos.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, because of the doors this one opens, you can't even really do cameos, especially with the introduction to the variant thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, where even if you did have cameos, they'd probably be a different actor.
Yeah.
It's like, which I can just, the thing that keep building up to with this, and this goes back also to the Tilda Swinton scene in Endgame,
Mm-hmm.
was Doctor Strange 2 in particular. Seems like it's going to be insane. Like, there's so many.
Mm-hmm.
Like, all the doors that you hear about, all these actors that are supposedly going to come back from different versions of the franchises.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, just all of the doors this opens, and how you can bring back like other characters,
Mm-hmm.
some of which are dead.
I keep seeing where like Doctor Strange 2 is just going to open with Doctor Strange standing in the middle of New York, just going. Like, he's just going to be like, fuck it, and throw his sling ring in the sewer.
What do you think of how, I was going to say, also as far as exposition, I like that they tried to help us with the little Jurassic Park animation.
Mm-hmm.
Like the like the video that John Hammond had, kind of.
Yeah, but even then, Miss Minutes becomes like a sinister figure by the end.
Yeah, I had to Google it, and I love that it's such a popular question. I had Googled it after the last episode. In Google, I put "is Miss." That's all I typed, and the first question was, "Is Miss Minutes evil?" And I didn't really get a clear. After I Googled it, I didn't get a clear answer. Is there any? What's going on?
What a lot of people point to is the scene at the beginning of episode 6, where she offers the deal, where she's like, Infinity Gauntlet, it's yours. You can have it. Do with it what you want. And then Loki's like, no, I'm just going to go talk to him. And Miss Minutes says something along the lines of, you can try.
I did see that Kang is credited as her creator, which gives me sinister vibes from her. And by the way, now that you brought it up, do you love, this is just a small thing, I don't know why I love it so much. I went back and watched it again just because I thought it was so funny. Do you like that when Miss Minute says Infinity Gauntlet, she pantomimes it? I don't know why that's so funny to me.
What's crazy about it too is, and what I've seen people point out is, like, you were asking me what kind of threat level Kang was. We spent 23 movies getting all these stones together for Thanos to use. And the fact that Miss Minutes simply says, if you want the gauntlet, it's yours. It can happen right now.
Yeah.
Loki's whole mission through his first couple of movies has become King of Asgard. You want Asgard? Fine. Yours. They have to just walk away. Like things that we have spent movies pursuing, and Kang can just make it happen.
And I should have known, because I didn't know Jonathan Majors was supposed to be in. I'm assuming that was like really, really under wraps.
Mm-hmm.
And when he appeared, I was like, I had heard rumors about Kang going in, but since I didn't really know much about him, I didn't know what to expect of him.
Well, that was what a lot of people were theorizing, and you see how many like WandaVision theories got shot down, Falcon Winter Soldier theories got shot down. And this was one actually everybody got right.
And it's like, I should have known he was going to be a big deal, because I was like, oh, Jonathan Majors, that's pretty random, but okay.
Mm-hmm.
But Jonathan Majors is like really in the process of blowing up right now.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, it makes sense that this is going to be like he was already on his way to becoming well known.
Mm-hmm.
Here it is. Here's
so
his
was he like Chadwick Boseman when he was cast as Black Panther?
Yeah, but Boseman got my attention a lot quicker.
Mm-hmm.
Probably because he had lead roles, where Jonathan Majors is usually he's the star of Lovecraft Country, which I haven't watched, but I hear a lot of good things about.
Mm-hmm.
And the first time he was kind of on the scene that I remember was The Last Black Man in San Francisco, which he's a supporting character in. But that was kind of his breakout, and then he was in The Five Bloods last year. But it's like you keep seeing his name more and more, especially now that he's like headlining something like Lovecraft Country that's got an audience.
Mm-hmm.
This is like Marvel's like always the next stepping stone.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's like it's either going to be, if there's a massive part that needs cast, either it's going to be a veteran that's really exciting, or somebody that's like right on the cusp of blowing up, and this is what's going to finish that off.
Mm-hmm.
And that appears to be where Jonathan Majors is now. And I would have, because if you were to ask me who would play somebody that makes Thanos look so small,
Mm-hmm.
would have never occurred to me. And yet, as soon as he appeared, I had no idea who the hell he was. But wasn't he like weren't you immediately drawn to him? He's so weirdly energetic for being where he is, and the mysterious character that he is before we realize who he is.
Mm-hmm.
There's just something immediately drawn. Like when you see Thanos and how like stoic and serious he was. Mm-hmm. Now he had like his one mission, and that was going to be his mission, and that was it. Very, very serious. Are we to assume that Kang will be played the way that he's played in this? Or
remember, he said that he was just one version of thousands.
Yeah, that's what's making me curious. So
there's going to be different personalities, because there's a personality of his that people think we're going to see in the MCU where he was absolutely ruthless.
So we are finally getting a legit, satisfying continuation of basically the idea that Split was a supervillain origin story.
Mm-hmm.
We're basically going to see what Shyamalan set up and couldn't pull off.
Mm-hmm.
In a small sense, in a vague sense, but you get what I mean.
Yeah, because the way Kang builds it up is he's like, you have this version of me who's kind and can joke around, and I keep everything, on the up and up. I make sure everything goes as it's supposed to. But there's other versions of me that you want no part of, that will destroy everything.
So I guess the real question is, will Jonathan Majors play all of them, or will they vary?
I'm guessing with his appearance in Ant-Man, he's going to play them all.
I could see that going either direction and working.
Mm-hmm. But I'm thinking we're going to really only end up seeing one, and it's whichever one's going to come out on top in the battle that they're all going to be in that he built up.
Isn't it kind of funny after all this? Everybody's talking about how all the Marvel movies are the same. They have the same story. It's the same setup. It's the same structure. Every single movie is the same thing, is what people like to say.
Mm-hmm.
Why do why do I feel like a lot of audiences are gonna like have trouble keeping up with all this now? Like they're gonna be working overtime to try to follow it now that they've gotten so in a groove of, oh, this movie's going to start this way and end this way. We know all that, but now it's like that's what I was telling you. Is I'm almost nervous about Doctor Strange too, because I'm afraid I won't be able to keep up with it. It's like it'll take like multiple viewings to catch everything.
And if they're doing what they say they're going to do with Spider-Man 3, like Tom Holland's Spider-Man's going to be so confused and lost.
And he's got to clear, like, is he still going to have to clear his name? He might want to start with that.
Is he going to, or is everything going to reset? Because at the end of Loki, when he ran back into Mobius, he had no clue who he was.
Oh, damn it. That makes sense, but it's also such a cop-out if that ends up being the case. But I mean, that's the thing. That's what I was saying before.
But if they do reset it and bring everything back to order, and the timeline gets reset, he's gonna have to clear his name.
Yeah.
So maybe it's a situation where we're not going to address this right now, but eventually we're going to have to.
So what Loki is mainly trying to tell us is this next phase is going to be fucking wild.
Yeah.
And then I would say, how do you top this once it's all said and done? But we've been saying that every time, so...
People have been saying that since the first Avengers movie came out.
So, we're mainly talking about prospects of the show. I guess we can get into some more specifics. What do you think about Loki as a character and how Hiddleston plays him in the show? I mean, he's still the character, but specifically in the show, anyway.
I think, I don't know, I feel like he was very dialed down for most of it. Like, he wasn't as over the top as Loki usually is.
Are you thinking the same thing I'm thinking? This could be. I don't really look at anything else anybody else says, so I could be saying... It's very likely when you talk about comic book movies that you can be saying something that's a new thought to you that like a billion people were saying months ago. So, sorry if that happens. But at some point in Loki's arc, probably early on, probably around the time of the first Avengers, if I had to guess, maybe around the Dark World, I'm not sure. Loki became the fixation mainly. I loved Loki as a villain in the first Avengers. Like, one of my favorite comic book movie villains is specifically Loki in the first Avengers. But at some point...
Didn't you even, like, didn't he sniff our top 15 video we did a few weeks ago?
Yeah, I think we name dropped him, I think, at least, like in the after stuff. At some point in Loki's arc, because of Tom Hiddleston, probably the long hair, and maybe Loki's personality, and how like he has that really charismatic thing that makes him magnetic. At some point in Loki's arc, he became the fixation of teenage girls.
Yeah.
Do you think his portrayal in the show, and really before that, is leaning more and more in the direction of that's our target audience for Loki? In a sense, not entirely. But it seems like there's definitely a certain portion where you feel like there's certain, like, maybe comedic bits in particular, like more juvenile humor, where you can really see it being directed at, like, a certain demographic. Not to say anything negative about that demographic, but the way studios see that demographic and think, this is what will appeal to them. Whether it will or not is another thing, but that's just the vibe I get sometimes. Like, it's such a small thing. You could probably just dismiss it as me nitpicking, and I won't argue with you. Where he seems to pick up, like, the vernacular of, like, modern teenagers. With, like, one word gets to me.
Okay.
Not in general, but when Loki used it. When he's fighting Sylvie, I think, in a hallway in episode 3 or 4,
Mm-hmm.
and she says something, and his response to it is to just squint and say, rude.
Mm-hmm.
See what I mean? Can I just name the example and you get what I mean? Why that doesn't work for me? I'm trying to remember in an instance, like I know it's such a specific thing to focus on because it's one word with one delivery, but it's like, would the first Avengers movie Loki have said rude when someone insulted him? And I know Sylvie's a different thing because number one, she's the love interest, and number two, she's him. But
let's just talk about what an interesting twist it is that he finally gets a love interest and it's just himself.
Can I be potentially controversial again? Once again,
Yeah.
I have no idea what anybody else is saying. Maybe this is a popular opinion, but maybe it's also totally not. I have no idea. The idea that Loki would finally fall in love and it's a version of himself is a perfect idea.
Mm-hmm.
You can't fail with that idea. That is exactly what would happen. If Loki were to ever get a love interest, yes, it is another version of himself. That is, if you had to give Loki a love story, that was the way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, I can tell you.
Going back to our curb conversation earlier, do you mean having said that?
From the bottom of my heart, with all the feeling in my being, from episode 3 to the end, I don't give one single solitary fuck about Sylvie. Nothing. I've got nothing for Sylvie. Episode 3 was, I think this was a mildly popular opinion at least. I was in love with episode 1. Episode 2 was a fun continuation that continued opening the doors, set up the whole Sasha Lane thing, like it was going to be something that kind of ended up not being much. But still, it was fine. Had a good opening and all that. The supermarket scene that was basically inspired by Fallen is really good.
Mm-hmm.
But when episode 3 hit, I got worried really fast.
Mm-hmm.
Like right around the time they were on the train, I think, was when I actually had the thought, oh shit, is the show gonna lose
me? Mm-hmm.
And I was really worried about it. Mm-hmm. And then it kept going. Episode 3 was kind of shitty in a number of ways. And then it kind of peaked in shittiness at its finish. When we had our very CGI-laden, in big-ass quotes, one-take action scene.
Mm-hmm.
Because the one-take action scene is so groovy right now. Despite the fact that Atomic Blonde and Extraction make fucking jokes out of it that we haven't turned back from yet. But this was quite possibly maybe the worst attempt at a one-take action scene I have ever seen. The CGI is really shoddy. The fight scenes are embarrassing. There are so many on-camera non-contact hits. And they're all moving like they're in rehearsal. And a lot of the fight scenes play out that way. The fight scene in front of the fake timekeepers was equally embarrassing. What was up with the action in this after all the praise they've gotten for stuff like the fight scenes in the Captain America movies? Why are we so far away from that right now? What happened?
I mean that badass fight between Bucky, Sam, and John Walker at the beginning of episode 5 of Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Yeah, just to name one. And the fight scenes in Black Widow are a little edit heavy, but they're still really good. What happened with? I don't get what happened with Loki's fight scenes.
My guess is most of the budget went to the effects.
Yeah, aren't we at a point now where we shouldn't feel like the TV show feels like a TV show? Because the thing about WandaVision, and to a lesser extent, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, they felt cinematic in their own way. Even WandaVision making its focus TV, classic TV, it still felt cinematic by the end of it. Man, Loki feels very TV, and I worry that Loki's going to be the first one to branch off into a second season.
Disney's already confirmed it.
Shit, because I mentioned that I love the idea. I was worried about WandaVision and Falcon and Winter Soldier because I was like, "Oh, this TV series is going to get played out like Agents of." I got tired of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. so quickly, and it's like you don't want that to happen, but.
I think the difference, though, is that Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is episodic, like a TV series, and WandaVision and Falcon and the Winter Soldier were like a movie broken up into parts.
As I was saying, I was so relieved when I found out that WandaVision and Falcon and Winter Soldier were just miniseries. But I'm a tiny bit worried about Loki. But like I said, even that kind of contradicts what we said at the beginning about how doors are always open. But I guess it's just the execution of some things. Like, it's not like necessarily the CGI is always bad. There is a point in time where like when we see the TVA for the first time in that big shot, it's like you can tell it's all animated, so you're not totally invested, but it's like it's still a cool looking place. And then it's also so well done. There's a moment in episode 2 in the TVA where there's an elevator shot. And the CGI is so good, that elevator shot makes my vertigo kick in. Like, I'm watching it on my fucking laptop, and my vertigo kicked in at that elevator shot. Like, that's how good the CGI was in many aspects, but not all of them.
What about what do you think of the CGI when Richard E. Grant's Loki was literally building Asgard to distract the Goliath?
Yeah. It's hard to gauge like how good CGI is when it's like so busy. But there's I think it's mainly when you see something that's like you can tell the CGI is kind of compensating, like the fight scenes, is when it stands out and makes everything look cheap. And I just don't. I couldn't believe what I was seeing with that. I know. Maybe I'm making too big a deal out of it, but I genuinely couldn't believe what I was seeing. Because I try not to. Because a lot of people, I usually get pissed when a lot of people do that. They single like one thing out and they nitpick it to death when it's not that big of a deal. But this,
I know what you mean, because I was talking to somebody one day about Endgame, and they said that they hated it, and the reason that they hated it was because they said the wrong character killed Thanos. They wanted. Do you remember the character that was introduced in the end credits scene of Guardians 2?
Which one?
The Adam Strange, I think his name is. No, not Adam Strange. That's Doctor Strange.
Was it Warlock?
Yeah. They're like, Adam Warlock should have killed Thanos. That took me out of the whole movie that he didn't. And I was like, who gives a shit?
He hasn't even been introduced yet.
Yeah, it was about the character arc of Tony Stark. Who gives a shit?
Yeah, I can't think of a more perfect person. I mean, I'm obviously not like a full-on comics person, but as far as just the movies, based on them alone, I can't imagine another character killing Thanos.
There are 4 possibilities that could have done it. 4. That would have been Tony Stark, Captain America, Thor.
Who also did, by the way.
Yeah. And Scarlet Witch. Because they all had the biggest bones to pick. You could throw Drax in there too, but I mean, I love Drax, but was Drax really a threat to Thanos? No. You could make the argument that Captain America wasn't either, but Captain America's heart made him a threat.
Yeah, given that he can hold the hammer and hold Thanos' hand back, there was something there.
Yeah. But I would say any one of those four would have been fine. Stark was the best choice, but any of those four I would have been fine with. And I still contend that if we had Wanda like we had at the end of WandaVision, Thanos would have been ripped into shreds.
Yeah, I was going to say Wanda post-WandaVision. Like, if Wanda had killed Thanos pre-WandaVision, I think we all would have said, what the fuck?
Mm-hmm.
But post-WandaVision, it would make perfect sense.
Yeah.
What do you think of... oh, yeah, there's another thing I kind of wanted to go into with that other thing about them pointing out certain demographics is the dialogue being dumbed down. Not just rude, which I could do another 5 minutes on, but there is not once, but not one, but two times where Sylvie simply describes a situation as "this sucks" or "this is gonna suck," and it's something pretty crucial.
I was going to say, is it the gravity of the situation that bothers you, or that you just can't imagine anyone from Asgard saying this sucks?
It just sounds like dumbed down dialogue. And also, is it for humor's sake? Is what it sounds like. Like when it looks like when Lamentus is about to go down and when they're on it, and she's like, "This is gonna suck." That's right before that fucking shitty long take. Long take quotes. I can't put that in big enough fucking quotes. But oh yeah. Anyway, the other thing I was going to go into was what do you think about? You were talking about how all the characters were new. What do you think about all of our? I kind of went on the thing about how Sasha Lane was kind of useless, but well, not entirely, but they built her up like she was going to really be something, and she like literally is gone, like is so unceremoniously gone off screen. But what do you think in general of the supporting characters that we've got now?
I'm interested to see where Ravonna goes, because she's kind of a lost character right now. I know from Lego Marvel Superheroes 2 and the comics that she's like Kang's right-hand person, which makes total sense for her. I think they set that up pretty well in the show, because she was so protective over the TVA and keeping things the way they were. Owen Wilson's great. Owen Wilson, I feel like, is the glue that kind of holds the series together, and when he's not on screen, he's missed.
That's something I forgot to mention. That's another reason I think episode 3 really took a dive, was that made you realize how much the Loki Mobius back and forth is the heart of the show, and what makes it a very large part of what makes it when it's at its highest.
Which also makes it hit really hard when you get to the very end and Mobius doesn't even know who he is.
Yeah.
Like, we've had a hug, we've had a reconciliation, we've had a real friendship built and trust, and it's all gone in the blink of an eye because of your favorite person, Sylvie.
And shock surprise. Holy shit! What was I about to say just now? It's so surprising. It just flew out of my head. Well, I'm gonna wait for that to come back to me.
What do you think of Kang's
exit? I assure you, it's really shocking.
What do you think of Kang's exit, where the last thing that he says is just very calmly, "See you soon"?
Yeah, I was thinking about it, because I was like, this is going to be a big deal that really sets everything off. And I was like, so let's really kind of revel in this moment. And it's like she's saying, like, I'm going to kill you. And he's like, yeah, you could. And then she does. Voila. A whole other phase that's going to be some of the most intense shit we've seen in this franchise because of this. I'm really, really trying to remember what the fuck I was just about to say a minute ago.
I think one thing too that I've kind of picked up from this is maybe it's just the way they're done. Like you were talking about how cinematic they are. I can see Wanda and Vision and Sam and Bucky transitioning back into film. I don't see Loki and Sylvie making that transition.
Certainly not the fuck Sylvie, but maybe that's just my opinion.
Mm-hmm. But I don't see Loki going back to a movie format after this. He feels like a TV character now.
And that would be another way where I'd be content with the line "No resurrections this time" if he didn't show up in another movie at least.
Mm-hmm. He's not on the cast list for Love and Thunder. As many people as there are that are on that list, he's not one of them.
I remember the shocking thing.
And I think too, him staying gone is good for Thor's character.
Yeah. Which brings us back around to what I was going to say that I forgot about. The shocking thing was sarcasm. I can't remember if that came through or not. But you were talking about the ways in which Loki and Mobius connected and the different things that kind of propelled that even more.
Mm-hmm.
And I was going to say, and shock surprise, in a Loki TV show, of course, he also gets a fake death scene.
Mm-hmm.
Because everybody gets a fake death scene. I guess, I mean, what do you consider pruning a death or what? Because it was like, because when that guy got pruned in the opening of the first episode, it's like, holy shit, that's scary. And then it's like, oh, but the void exists.
Mm-hmm.
I know we need the void. I know that for story purposes, we definitely need the void. But still, it was.
Well, okay. Look at it this way. Couldn't you look at it the same way if you believe in an afterlife and somebody dies in real life? Like if you knew like there was a second place to go, like wouldn't it kind of lessen that impact?
Yeah, because it's like, because the thing was when I had looked up what exactly pruning was. They explained it, but it was like, I need maybe just a little more specific.
Mm-hmm.
And it's apparently like being just completely wiped from existence.
Mm-hmm.
Completely. I would think completely would also involve not even being able to go to a place like the void, just being gone entirely. But obviously, that's not the case. So, and like I said,
unless you run afoul of the Alliath.
Yeah, which it takes all of the end of one episode to get rid of. So.
But at the same time, like, couldn't you look at that too as like a fate worse than death? Like you still exist, but no one else knows that you do, and there's no way to get back to existence.
That could be, yeah. That'll be one of those ideas that grows on me, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I do get the importance of having the void, especially now that what we've seen.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
Do you subscribe to the theory that the void is in the quantum realm? Because after we saw Kang's Citadel at the end of the 5th episode, I remember going on Reddit and people were saying that if you look at the way that the quantum realm is designed and the way that the area around the Citadel was designed, it's pretty identical.
That could be.
And time does work differently in the quantum realm.
Like I said, being much more familiar with the movies than I am the comics, I feel like this is, for me as an inexperienced person, this is dangerous territory to speculate.
Mm-hmm.
Because I could say something way off. But
I feel like too that what kind of confirms that is that Kang will be back in Ant-Man 3. Who introduced us to the quantum realm?
That does seem like a pretty big, with what little I know, that seems like a pretty big possibility.
Mm-hmm.
Because like we were saying, Ant-Man, as crucial as Scott is now, having basically made Endgame happen,
Mm-hmm.
Ant-Man 3 seems pretty random for Kang to start.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, do we even know how big is? He probably wouldn't be the main antagonist of Ant-Man 3, would he? I would, if he's going to be Thanos, like, I would think he won't be the main antagonist of the movie till way into this.
Well, I know from what I've researched that Kang is going to be a bigger threat, but it's not going to take as long for him to be neutralized as it did Thanos. It's not going to take 20 movies to get rid of Kang. That, like, Kang should be done by the end of Phase 4.
That would make sense. I mean, it does seem like the arcs wouldn't quite match up time-wise, but it's like when you look at the practicality of continuing the franchise, it makes sense.
Mm-hmm. But it'll be interesting to see because look how well they've handled the snap and how it affected things. Like, surely the timeline being jumbled like that's going to have a similar kind of ripple effect throughout the whole MCU.
Yeah, because we've said things like this a lot, but it really just bears repeating. There's so many things that on paper sound like there's no way you could really execute them to their fullest, even with a whole franchise. And yet they've done it in just a little over 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
So anything is possible.
Mm-hmm.
So where are we at with B-15 right now?
I don't know.
Because I say there's a lot of support, not really, but on a first go around, there's a lot of supporting characters to keep up with, especially characters like Sasha Lane, who just come in like they're going to be important and then they're not, and you're having to keep up with what is this person's purpose and all that. But I'm curious how threatening is Ravonna supposed to be eventually if she's.
I think she's just like a minion.
Because she did give me the vibe she was supposed to be a big deal. I just wasn't sure in like what kind of way until things started getting revealed.
Mm-hmm.
That's another actress, Gugu Mbatha-Raw, who kind of blew up at just a certain time. Like the first time I saw her was a period piece called Belle in like 2014 or 2015, and ever since then she's just kind of been steadily here. And now, it seems like Marvel's always the top step anymore as far as people starting out. And Woman Misaku was just in. She's also in Lovecraft Country with Jonathan Majors, and I think she got a BAFTA nomination last year for that horror movie on Netflix, His House.
Mm-hmm.
Got like a bunch of BAFTA nominations. She's also a major character in the director's cut of Batman vs Superman.
Oh.
She's that witness that they like throw onto the train tracks.
Oh.
But she's already crossed universes.
Michael Keaton's crossing back, and I'm excited.
Yeah, so yeah, I gotta tell you, I recognize Gugu Mbatha-Raw from other things. I recognize Jonathan Majors from other things. I recognize Woman Misaku from other things. And they're all people that are really, really breaking out. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Sophia DiMartino, who plays Sylvie, when she showed up, no idea who the fuck she was.
Mm-hmm.
Looked up her IMDb page, still don't know who the fuck she is. Don't think I've seen her in anything before. This sounds like I'm like just attacking her now, but I don't know. I just don't know if the Sylvie thing is gonna continue to work for me eventually or not. I don't know, but because that's the thing is we were building up I was really building up after the first episode that they were playing up Loki's variant as very mysterious.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, who do you think that is? And you were like, it's another Loki. And I was telling you, yeah, but why are they hiding his face? There's something going on. That's either going to be somebody we know actor-wise,
Mm-hmm.
or it's going to be like a famous comics character that hasn't made their way into the franchise yet.
Or it's going to be Tom Hiddleston. He's going to be the villain and the hero of the show.
Yeah, but that was that was when I knew something was up. Was it's like when he said, "We're looking for you." It's like if it was going to be just another Tom Hiddleston, that would have been the moment to reveal him. But we just still saw Shrouded, and then it ended. I was like, man, who is that? Oh, I want to know who that is. Oh, fuck, was that disappointing? It just immediately. It's like when I was down there. We were watching the episode together when she was revealed.
Mm-hmm.
Like, who the fuck is that? I don't know who that actor is. I don't know who that character is. I mean, it's another Loki, obviously, but it's like, who the fuck is Sylvie? And then it turned out, even by the end of the show, I still didn't give a fuck who Sylvie was. I don't know. Like I said, I love the idea of Loki falling for himself. That's perfect. I wouldn't change that at all. But Sylvie as a character just is not working for me. So, I know I'm going in circles here with the Sylvie thing. I know, but that's what happens.
It's like Enchantress and Suicide Squad all over again.
Jesus, don't insult Sylvie like that. You leave Sylvie alone. Yeah, it is like I'm in like a tongue twister kind of scenario. That was.
I think you just don't like female magical comic book characters.
It made me sound sexist because I don't like two of them. But Kate Blanchett in Ragnarok, that's something. She destroyed Thor.
Which is funny because Marvel has an Enchantress character. That's who I was to be.
Yeah, I was getting ready to say something, but then I had to backtrack.
So, is there anything else we need to touch on?
There is one other thing we could always mention before we end this. We talked about the other Loki variants here and there. We talked about Richard E. Grant and Boastful Loki and President Loki and Kid Loki. There's one Loki we didn't talk about yet.
We also didn't talk about how there's so many Easter eggs in the show, especially in the Void. Like Thanos' helicopter from the comics is in there.
Really?
Yeah. Do you know what Thanos' helicopter from the comics looks like?
No.
You're gonna love this. It's a big yellow helicopter with just his name on it.
No.
It's called the Thanos copter.
How fashionable.
There's Frog Thor in a jar somewhere.
Wait, hold on a second. So it doesn't even say like the Mad Titan. It says Thanos.
Yes.
Like a kindergartner writing his name at the top of the paper. Thanos.
I will look up an image while you're making up your next point.
Yeah. As far as like Alligator Loki goes, I feel like that's one of those things where usually I would dismiss it as them going for humor and it's kind of funny, but they milked it and it wasn't that great. I don't know. I was kind of totally in for Alligator Loki, and the reason for that is what? That's the least threatening thing I've ever seen. That looks like something Inspector Gadget would operate. But yes, Alligator Loki.
And here it is sitting in the Void.
I can kind of vaguely make it out. I mean, it's hard to miss because it's fucking yellow. But the thing about what is but the thing about Alligator Loki.
You didn't know about the Thanos copter?
No. Why would I know about that? So, anyway, about Alligator Loki. That's normally something I probably would have dismissed as dumb humor. But I don't know. I think what's really sold me on Alligator Loki was the conversation with Mobius. When they're like debating his existence. And they're like, is he actually a Loki? And then it's like, well, he's green, and it's like, well, maybe he's just playing the long con, because that's and just kind of that idea in general that you have to be that skeptical when dealing with any kind of Loki is kind of perfect. So
another conversation I saw on Reddit that people were having about Alligator Loki, one of the things they loved about it was whenever there were like character reaction shots, Alligator Loki got one. Like he was treated like a real character.
I noticed just him being straight-faced when they cut back to him while Mobius was debating whether he was a Loki or not, and whether he was playing the long con or not, which I thought was funny because his face never changes. I don't know if I noticed the reaction shots before.
Yeah, I mean, his face looks exactly the same, but they show him like if he was a character, he would react.
Like the Rocky Horror scene.
Yeah.
And then we talked about how that image of President Loki was the face of the advertising. And President Loki is a bitch. I mean, yeah. He goes out quickly, right after he's introduced, we'll say. I suppose it's unfair to call somebody a bitch for screaming if they get their hand bitten off.
Let's not forget that he screams in one of the ways that, as many movies as you've seen, it still cracks you up.
That is, I've referenced this in a few videos. One very easy, very juvenile joke that will always work on me is the unassuming person that has a high-pitched scream. It has never failed. And especially if it's like a threatening person or like a burly person. Even funnier. It's a joke as old as fucking dirt, and it works on me every time. And when President Loki started shrieking when he lost his hand, I was done. Like, there's so much chaos in that scene after that happens. But yeah, so yeah, I say that about juvenile humor and demographics and stuff like that. Yeah, sometimes just stupid shit will work on me. So it's just, I guess it just depends on the mood and what it is. But yeah, sometimes it does work. But with the MCU especially, it's really a mixed bag as far as humor goes. But that will always work on me. So.
You're saying if Drax had a high pitched scream, that would have worked for you.
Oh man, I would still be recovering. So before I brought this up, you were getting ready to ask if there was anything else we needed to talk about the show. This would be a pretty weird stopping point, but is that it? Because usually we end on the prospects for like where else we're going, but we kind of did that first.
Yeah.
So
where do you rank this one with the other two?
Well, WandaVision started to lose me at the end. I think WandaVision's the best of the three, pretty handily. Then probably, I don't know. I like the Falcon and Winter Soldier. I went through the Falcon and Winter Soldier again before we did our video on it a while back. And the second go around of Falcon and Winter Soldier was better than the first one. It still feels so minor and like it had some filler in it. But I like every episode of the Falcon and Winter Soldier, barring maybe the finale. No, including the finale. All those episodes are better than episode 3 of Loki. Episode 3 of Loki was a real low point. but I also kind of really don't like the finale of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And the finale is the episode you gotta really land.
Mm-hmm.
So that's tough. Because episode 3 of Loki is probably the worst episode of the 3 shows. But Falcon and the Winter Soldier not sticking its landing really hurts. So,
do you think Loki stuck the landing the best of the 3?
Don't you dare go on your sexist kick again, because I also hate Sharon Carter as a character. And the surprise villain was very disappointing. Has nothing to do with Loki, yes, stuck the landing. I think I credit Jonathan Majors a lot for how well Loki's finale stuck its landing. So, and then what exactly it opens up, and how it showed that, how it executed that.
Mm-hmm.
It's all Sylvie's fucking fault. So I would still say I don't know. I genuinely don't, because I love Loki's first episode.
Mm-hmm. Do you think Loki's first episode is the best episode out of all the series?
Those first few WandaVision episodes are really, really good.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really hard to say. I was trying to think of what the high point of the Falcon and Winter Soldier was. I think it's the one. I guess it's the one that ends with Walker killing the dude, but I don't remember that episode being on fire like all the time.
Mm-hmm. That was episode 4, I believe. So would you say maybe Falcon and Winter Soldier would be the end of episode 4 going into the beginning of episode 5? Episode 5 of Falcon and Winter Soldier is pretty good.
A lot of people considered it filler, but you know what I actually kind of liked? Was the funeral episode of Falcon and Winter Soldier. The one where they're trying to find the funeral, and Zemo like gives the kids the Turkish delight and finds out in like seconds.
Mm-hmm.
They're making it like a whole investigation.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Falcon and Winter Soldier had its ups and downs for sure, and Loki came back in a big way.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought WandaVision got underwhelming in its last episode when it got very. I know I praised it for being cinematic, but it also had a very WandaVision also had a very routine ending once we realized who Catherine Hahn was.
Mm-hmm.
So they've all got their ups and downs, but I think WandaVision had the least, because it still worked for what it was, even if it started to go into familiar territory. And I think the only reason WandaVision's familiar territory hurt it was that it felt so fresh otherwise. It felt so much like something they'd never done before until we got to that point. And when we got her whole backstory, there's definitely emotional beats in there, which help. That's another thing WandaVision has going for it, is how emotional it is throughout. Like the whole thing where it's when what's Vision's line? What is grief but love persevering?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like you have that, and then you have the train scene in episode 3 of Loki, where it's like they're trying to find that same amount of depth, and it's just not working out. They're almost trying to be comedic.
Let's not forget WandaVision also had when Wanda's standing over Vision's body and she just says, "I can't feel you."
Yeah, so it almost
after you watch WandaVision, the ending of Infinity War hits so much harder.
Yeah.
When you realize like the effect it has on her. Like I've noticed, like after watching WandaVision, I went back and rewatched Infinity War. We may have talked about this before. Wanda like trying to get the stone out and destroying it is a very hard scene to watch. Because you know what the end result is. You know where that's going now.
And I guess the equivalent to that in the others would be like Bucky and especially Sam trying to move on without Steve being through line in Falcon and Winter Soldier.
I would say for Falcon and Winter Soldier, one of the more emotional parts of that, I don't know if you call it emotional, but the scene where he tries to make amends with his friend for killing his son and he isn't forgiven. Like, he just loses that friendship.
Yeah, I also felt like they cut that down way too much.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the end result is good, but the fact that we didn't see any of it was kind of like, that was kind of cowardly of the writer.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously Loki has this stuff where he gets to watch the events of the rest of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
I was telling you when I was down there, another interesting, it's almost kind of heartbreaking if you really, really think about it. Because it's 2012 Loki, he spends the whole show referring to Asgard in present tense.
Yeah.
It's like
I just thought of another emotional beat in Falcon and Winter Soldier. The scene at the end where Sam makes sure, I can't remember the guy's name, it's been too long since I've watched it, but he made sure that like he got recognition in the Captain America Museum.
Yeah.
And his reaction to it.
Yeah, because with the way that character was going, I almost thought he would like reject it.
Mm-hmm.
But he was like, he finally got it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you notice none of these moments hit as hard as the stuff in WandaVision.
Yeah.
Like even as well played as it is, Loki watching Rene Russo die never quite hit in the way a bunch of WandaVision stuff did.
I've seen people's theory that Phase 4 so far with WandaVision and Wanda dealing with the loss of Vision, Falcon Winter Soldier, them trying to move on from Steve, Loki with him finding out about his family, and Black Widow being a character that's dead, that Phase 4, it seems to be that it's going to deal with grief and loss.
Which the Endgame already dealt quite a bit with already.
Yeah, Endgame kind of kicked that off.
But now we're dealing with the characters that didn't get a chance to grieve because they were blipped.
Mm-hmm. And I saw where somebody said that Spider-Man could also fit into that because Spider-Man's kind of lost his safety.
Yeah.
Thanks to J.K. Simmons.
Of course.
Yep. That's like the little one watches her Spider-Man show before she goes to sleep. And Susan asked me, she was like, why does, and it's throughout the whole series, there's like billboards of Jameson just running Spider-Man in the ground. And Susan asked me, she was like, why does he hate him so much? I was like, honestly, I don't know. I don't know. I just know that every version of Jameson hates Spider-Man.
Probably because negative press sells more.
Probably.
That's my guess. I feel
like there's even a line where he pops up on a billboard and like Spider-Man gets to join the Avengers, and he's like, the Avengers has tainted its team with the addition of the Menace. Like,
I want to say
that's the one where Shia McBride's Nick Fury.
I want to say there's actually a scene in one of Raimi's movies where he explains that negative press sells better, but I don't remember.
Mm-hmm. He's probably telling Bill Nunn.
Yeah, I remember Tobey Maguire saying something like, "Oh no, he was saving those people," when Jameson just like shut him out.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, saying that Spider-Man's in the position that he's in because of Jameson, really letting Mysterio off light.
Yeah.
All right, so I was trying to dance around it because you haven't seen Black Widow yet. But I was saying that the post-credit scene is pointing us in one of our next directions. I don't know if you want to wait till you see it or what, but I mean, maybe it's something you already know because it turns out you know a lot about what direction the shows are going more than I do. But yeah, like I said, Black Widow finalized Natasha in a way I was really happy with.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, they set up where we're going next. So, yep. Is that it?
I think so.
All right. I'm going to be doing a Nicolas Cage video next, where I catch up on 6 of his movies that I've missed, including Pig, the movie that's getting him like the best reviews of his career that just came out. So
you're catching up on 6 movies of Nicolas Cage. So that means you're what, about a month behind?
Well, I used to do them as they I was able to do them as they came out, and I was able to keep that up for years. And at some point, I lost track. So that'll be fun to catch up with him. He's always fun to talk about. That's why he's getting his own video. So, and that's the only thing. And then the Suicide Squad is on Friday. And then we'll go from there. We got a lot of the top directors have movies this year. It's insane. So it's gonna be interesting award season too. This is the month we start our awards videos as well, usually. So as long as everything goes according to plan, those should be starting up at the end of the month.
And then our next video, most likely, will be another TV discussion.
And there's a few more movie ones I want to do when we're in the same room. A couple of those will be for October. A few of those will be for October. So hopefully we can get those by then. We probably will. But and then we'll see what happens from there. So is that I keep forgetting I'm the one that's stopping now. So anything else you want to add?
No.
All right, then I think that's it.